Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than our normal travel vlogs, because today we're doing a review. Whenever we find an interesting hotel or way of getting from point A to point B, we want to tell you about it. Recently we found ourselves in the beautiful country of Portugal. We were hanging out in Lisbon and we wanted to see the second largest and one of the most popular destinations for travelers to this country as well. We wanted to travel to Porto. If you're traveling to Portugal, you should definitely check out this beautiful and historic seaside city. The architecture is amazing, the food is to die for, and the beaches and vistas are breathtaking. However, you might find it a little bit difficult to travel directly to Porto from North America or Asia. Chances are you'll have to connect through Lisbon first, but then you'll also miss out on everything Lisbon has to offer. There is a solution, and that's why we're doing a review of the train that travels between Porto and Lisbon. There are several trains each day that run between these two popular Portuguese destinations, and today we're going to be talking about the high-speed tilting train, the Alfa Pendular. This train provides the fastest way to get between Lisbon and Porto, taking about 3 hours. Of course, saying it's the fastest here is taking into account travel time and waiting time in the airports, if you were to fly, of course. We started our journey from what is often considered the main train station in Lisbon, the Oriente station. There is another station a little bit further down the line, the Santa Apollonia station, but we couldn't find any connections through there. There is also the Rocio station, once called the Lisbon Central Station, located right in the old town of Lisbon. However, the only real way to take high-speed trains from the Central Station is to connect through the Oriente station on the urban train first, so we thought we would just head this route off at the pass and get on directly at Oriente. The Oriente station is quite well appointed, with parking and bus stations in the lower level and restaurants and shops in the middle level. We stopped to get a few refreshments before our journey, since food on trains tends to be a little bit more expensive than in grocery stores. We made our way up to the main platforms, which is essentially the roof of this station. Oriente Station is a very interesting looking building, and it was quite a comfortable place to wait for our train. If you book tickets in comfort class on the Alfa Pendular, you can also get access to the CP Lounge at Oriente, which offers a nice, quiet and private area to wait for your train. However, we arrived with only 15 minutes before our train departed, so we didn't really have time to partake. Speaking of the comfort class, there are two different classes of travel available on these Alfa Pendular trains. The comfort class, which is essentially first class, and the tourist class, which is second class. The tourist class ticket is cheaper, of course, and features a 2-2 seat layout, much like many other modern railways throughout Europe. The comfort class features a much more comfortable 1-2 seat layout, again similar to something you might find on Deutsche Bahn or the TGV first class trains. Of course, these seats are more expensive, but we'll talk a little bit more about the cost and prices later in this video. Our train trundled into the station right on time. You can tell the Pendular is a high-speed train by looking at it, but the one that we were provided looked a little bit tired from the outside. We found our seats in comfort class, stowed our bags, and then settled in for the journey. So let's talk about the seat. The seats are actually quite nice. As we mentioned, we were in comfort class, so the seats were in a 1-2 layout. There's actually an insane amount of legroom, to the point where I thought the seat in front of me was a bit too far away. A tray table comes down from the seat back. The table was very large, and I was able to fit a beverage, my phone, and my computer all on the tray table at the same time. There's a small garbage at each seat, and every seat in comfort class has a 220-volt European plug for power, which worked throughout the journey. There's also an overhead reading light, which wasn't necessary for our daytime trip. Since the sun did get a bit bright throughout our trip, we were thankful for the electronic sunblinds. The overhead storage space was perfect for our medium-sized luggage. If you have larger suitcases, there's also a luggage rack at the end of each car, but they do fill up fast. The seats also do have a button that allows for a slight recline, but it's nothing too crazy. Next to this button is also a very peculiar headphone jack and a channel seek button. Throughout the journey, there was a program on the screens in the car, and it seemed like a tourist channel of some sort. You couldn't change the channel on this screen, but you could listen to it through this jack in the seat. This feature definitely reminded us of the times when there was just a few large screens on airplanes, and everyone had to watch the same movie. So what are some of the other features of this train? The rail line does boast its Wi-Fi capabilities, but we couldn't connect to the Wi-Fi throughout the entire journey. The train also does have a small dining car, which was more like a dining booth, and it was crowded the entire time, so we didn't do any filming here. They did have some snacks and food available. Supposedly, you can also book a meal service that will be served to you at your seat, but everyone on our train seemed to miss the memo because nobody ordered this service. What was nice was that a snack and beverage cart was brought through the comfort class car several times during our journey. There was plenty on this cart that we could purchase. The train does have a bathroom in each car as well, which was decently sized and well appointed. It was also kept clean throughout the trip. As far as our ride, it was very bumpy. This is a high-speed train, but unfortunately the rails in Portugal do not really allow trains to go any faster than 220 kilometers per hour, and during our journey we almost never broke 200. The tilting capabilities of this train do make a lot of sense, because the tracks don't have enough bank in the turns to allow the train to go this speed without tilting. We also stopped or slowed down several times on this trip. As far as scenery goes, there really isn't much to see. The land between Lisbon and Porto is mainly flat, crop, or marshland, and it's really nothing you should be paying to see as a visitor to Portugal. A ride on the Alfa Pendular is truly to get from point A to point B. We should also say that this ride on the Alfa Pendular in comfort class was by far the least first-class feeling, first-class experience that we've ever had on a European train. There was almost no staff on board other than the person who brought around the beverage cart, who coincidentally was also the one checking tickets. There's no luggage service, which you sometimes get on first-class trains. There's nobody to ask questions if you have them. There was no complimentary food or drink, nor were there any real perks of being in comfort class other than the more spacious and comfortable seat. That being said, how do you book a ticket on the Alfa Pendular? Well, it's not quite as intuitive as you might think. You should book your journey through CP, which is the Portuguese state railway company, and the operator of nearly every train in the country. Now, you will have to do some research on your own depending on where you want to go, because there's not really a cheat sheet to determine from which of the many stations at each destination city you can get to from any of the many departure stations you can get to from your departure city. If you're going between Lisbon and Porto, we would recommend a connection between Oriente and Campania stations. Unfortunately, when you search for a connection, the website spits out a huge, difficult-to-read list of all possible connections. Unlike other rail websites, which might give you the 5 best connections based on your search criteria, CP just gives you all of them, and you have to figure out which one is best. There is a small key to figure out which trains are Alfa Pendular versus intercity or urban trains. But if you don't know this ahead of time, you might find yourself on a slower, unexpected train journey. We booked 2 one-way tickets from Lisbon to Porto in the comfort class, and we ended up paying €47 or about $51 per person. Tickets in the second-class compartments are a little more than half of this price. So we guess the big question here is, was this worth it? We did pay quite a lot for the very little additional service that we got being in comfort class. Yes, the seats are much larger than the seats in second class, and we imagine they're probably quite a bit more comfortable as well. But without the inclusion of even a free beverage, and the defunct Wi-Fi, we were left wondering what we actually paid extra for. On top of that, the train just felt old and rickety. Not in an unsafe way, but in a way where you knew that the money you were paying was probably not going towards track upgrades. Don't get us wrong, again the seats were fine, but at the end of the day we thought we probably would have gotten just as good of an experience being in the second class carriage, especially considering this is only a 3-hour journey. Realistically speaking, the only other alternative for travel between Lisbon and Porto is flying, unless you feel like renting a car, which would be significantly more expensive. Flights between Lisbon and Porto are not that much more expensive, and in fact on most days they're actually cheaper than booking a comfort class ticket in the Alfa Pendular, as long as you don't feel like checking a bag. So when all is said and done, we'll leave it up to you to decide if riding the famous tilting Alfa Pendular train between Lisbon and Porto is worth it. For us, it was a convenient and easy way to get between these two cities without having to go to an airport. That being said though, we probably would not do it again. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.